Of course, I'm not gonna Happy New Year, everybody, and welcome to the pre-show. I am here with Cece and my lovely wife Priscilla, and we're gonna have a little chat while we wait for everybody to sign in. So comment, say hello, let us know that you're here. And tonight's topics is Egypt, mysticism, and the occult. So hello, Cece. Hello, the demon guy, and hello, Priscilla. How are you guys doing?
I'm doing good. I'm excited.
I'm so proud of you. You're here volunteering your time. She does exist.
Yeah, I exist. But I'm only here for the Egypt talk.
Of course. Okay. So what is it that you what do you want to learn about Egypt? What kind of questions you got? What do you think?
I think one of the biggest ones is about the reincarnation and why there were so many steps in preserving the body when I feel that now we kind of, what we think we know is that it's just the spirit or the soul itself that gets reincarnated or comes back. So that was one of my questions. Why so much there with the body?
All right. So Jason is in the background. If you got answers for that, then maybe we'll get into that. I can see you, but I can see you. Cece, anything you want to get into?
No, just that's a great question. So first off, that's a really great concept to dive into. I think with the Egyptian reincarnation and how they care for their afterlife. I think maybe just to add to that, maybe some of their beliefs around various gods and potentially some of the meaning as to why they have primarily animal heads of various kinds representing their gods. That would be interesting for sure.
So what about the connection with mysticism and the occult? For me, I'd be more like, let's get into ancient symbols and masonry and things like that. And I think I see him nodding his head there. He wants to get into that too. So that's it, I guess. So this is the pre-show. Thank you, everybody, for popping in for a little bit. For those of you, this is season 4, episode number 1. So here's the intro. Sit back, relax, and we'll see you in a few minutes.
Tonight, we will go deep into the realm of the unknown and question everything as we search for the truth. We will explore the possibility of countless phenomena within the ultra spectrum, and together we will learn that it is all connected. This podcast is brought to you by the Experiencer Support Association, and it is a live stream broadcast. If you have a question, send me a super chat or become a YouTube member. This podcast is brought to you by the Experiencer Support Association. Take a seat, relax, get ready, and welcome to Beyond the Tinfoil Hat.
Hello. So today is Thursday, January 6, 2021, and I, Ryan Stacy, am your host this evening. I'm a licensed private investigator, citizen journalist, and the director of investigations for the Experiencer Support Association. Welcome to the channel, and thank you for joining us this evening. Remember to super chat, click the $ next to your name in the comment box, and if you're in the observation deck, which I see you guys running around for some reason, that's interesting. We're in the Experiencer Hall, so go in, put your questions in the public chat, and I'll try to get to those if I can. So our guest for season 4, episode 1 is Jason Quitt. Jason is a lifetime experiencer who has been studying various energies and various energy modalities and spiritual practices since 2002. He's a graduate of the Institute of Energy Wellness in 2005, author of Egyptian Postures of Power, and Jason has been teaching and lecturing on the subjects of mysticism, astral projection, meditation, and Qi Gong since 2010. Jason has continued his study of ancient systems of mysticism and wellness, shamanism to this day, and he also is 40 minutes away from me, and I like that, fellow Ontarian. So Jason, put on your tinfoil hat. We're about to go down a rabbit hole. How are you doing? Oh, you have one. That's awesome.
But as a conspiracy theorist, I know that tinfoil actually does not block those things.
So I know, but they still wear them. This is beyond that, what beyond that. So just so you know, I got Cece and Priscilla in the backstage. If you guys want to be brought in at any time, since this is new, just send me a text and I'll bring you in, because I can't hear you. So today we start off with our first icebreaker from Tim the Demon Guy Morrison, and he's going to kick the show off. So you can find Tim the Demon Guy Morrison at the Demon Guy on Facebook and Twitter. So the way this works, Jason, is I'm opening this for the first time. I don't know what it says. He's in the chat. I saw him chime in. Good to see you. And his question is, if you died and had to choose one place to haunt for the rest of eternity, where would you choose to haunt? Yeah, so if you died and you had to haunt a place for all of eternity, where would it be?
Yeah, definitely on the spot. I would say someplace meaningful where people would appreciate it. So either at a large theater or some type of library or some type of university or hall, where a lot of people gather, and then they'll know the story of the haunting of this place.
You know what? I like your thought process, because as an investigator, if that's the common places that people think the ghosts are, then let's go give them the proof there, because that's where they're going to be with all those tools. So I would agree with you on that. All right. So hello to. Sometimes that happens. I don't know why. I haven't figured that out. Hello, Serena. Good to see you in the chat. So, Jason, just like any other show that we do, the best question I always start with is why are you the way that you are? So how did you get to the guy that you are sitting in front of me right now? Where do you want to start?
Well, that is quite the question, because there's so many things along the path that kind of puts you where you are. I would say that I could start in my early 20s, where I started to have experiences. And I know that you speak with experiencers quite often. In fact, your show is based upon that. And that is the moment I feel I became part of the community, was in my early 20s. And this was around 2002. So you have to remember, this is pre-YouTube. I don't know if I was using AOL or Yahoo for search engines back then. But it was very difficult having experiences back then, because it was hard to find a support, to find other people. And for years, I thought I was quite alone in what I was going through. I didn't know anybody that was going through what I was going through. And it all started with a sleeping condition called sleep paralysis. And, I've told this story probably a million times, but that was my doorway into this world, and which led me into the mysteries and to Egyptian everything. Because when these things occurred to me, you wake up in the middle of the night and your body is completely paralyzed. You're basically screaming in your body, you're screaming in your mind to wake up, which is extremely terrifying when this starts to happen to you. This was occurring quite often in my life, and I started to get used to it. So it became common to me. And in that state, I started to get a sense of a different body, is the only way I could describe it. And it was like the physical body became my tomb, my sarcophagus. And I had another body that was inside my body, and I could actually move that body around. So I'd be kind of like tossing inside my body, screaming to wake up, move a finger, get out of the experience. And one night I did. And I was just tossing and turning in my body to try to wake up. And I tossed so hard that I popped myself out. And it was exactly the same experience as what people describe as a near-death experience. And I found myself above my body, looking down at my body. I can see myself in bed. And at the foot of my bed, there was a very tall, shadow-like being. And remember, I didn't know any of these things before this happened. And from my limited experience of just knowing just what we're brought up to believe, instantly I thought this was the Grim Reaper. Like, I'm out of my body, I'm dead. The Grim Reaper is standing in my bedroom. I thought it was over having this experience. And it just scared me so much that I got sucked back into my body and woke up. This was around 22. I was 22 years old when this event happened. And it was from that point that it opened something inside of me where I was able to kind of step back out of my body to experience whatever that new world was. And that's where I got my start into this whole path that led me to meeting some incredible people. And many of them actually. And that's how I got my start into this community, was through a woman named Joanne Eady. And for those that don't know, she was the original person that created the conference, the Alien Cosmic Expo, I think the first one was in Brantford.
Yeah, Brantford. Yeah.
And I'm trying to remember if it was 2014 or 2015. It was around there.
I think it was 16, 17,
Couldn't have,
18.
It couldn't have been because I already wrote the book.
Okay, then 15. Then it would be 15.
Yeah. And I was friends with Joanne for years before that. And I would go to her dowsing conferences and her hypnotherapy conferences. And sometimes she would ask me to speak about the different experiences of leaving your body and, what we learned on the other side. And she called me and she said, Jay, I'm putting on this conference, the Alien Cosmic Expo, and you're speaking at it. And I originally told her no, because I'm not part of the UFO scene back then. And I didn't know how I would fit in to any of that. And you were there too. So you were right there. And
to give you some context, while that was happening, working for MUFON Canada, Stu Bundy at the time was like, yeah, we're going to do an event and MUFON's going to do a little 10-minute segment and you're going to do it. And I was like, no. And I was in a small little conference, little room and thinking no one would show up. And that damn thing was packed. And then we both went on that conference. I remember that. We got sucked into it at the same time. And then boom, years passed. Now we're back together. Synchronicity, many, many things to come. So keep going from there. What happened next?
So, it's like we're now on a schedule with Paul Hellyer, who else was there? Stanton Friedman, Travis Walton, Stu Bundy Richard Dolan was there.
Steve Bassett was there. Pope.
Right. So all these big names.
Yeah.
And Jason Quitt. Right. It's my first time.
And MUFON Canada, but I was a nobody then, but so still I was the guy for MUFON Canada. So I was like,
and when I walked into the conference, there was a gentleman sitting right in the lobby. And he had this big poster of an insectoid being. And I don't know if you remember that. And it was Bob Mitchell. I don't know if you remember Bob Mitchell.
No, I do remember Bob. Bob was with MUFON for a while too.
Yeah. And so I walk in and I'm looking at this giant poster of this manted creature. And it was a beautiful picture. Like, it was very well illustrated. And I said to Bob, I go, wow, this is a great picture. It's pretty much identical to what I've seen when I leave my body. And I guess that caught his attention because he showed up in my lecture where I talked about out-of-body experiences, astral travel, and past lives. So the whole thing was, when you leave your body, you exit space-time, and suddenly you can jump back and forth between different life streams, gain information, or heal, these different lives. So Bob was in that presentation, and after that presentation was done, he was so fascinated with what I had said or presented that he immediately asked me, would I be willing to sit with him and be interviewed by him? I said, yeah, sure, we'll do that. And I sat down, interviewed with him, and he got back to me and he said, Jay, your story there's too much to it to just kind of get an interview. Would you like to write a book with me? And this was, and Bob Mitchell, he was kind of famous in Toronto. He was the crime writer for the Toronto Star for 30, 40 years. I mean, he was well known in that circuit. And so, of course, I said yes to him. And we actually became very good friends. We wrote the book, Forbidden Knowledge, Revelations of a Multidimensional Time Traveler. which still makes me laugh at that title because that was Bob's input. Yeah.
That's a good title.
Yeah. Well, it kind of lumped me in with the whole time travel aspect of the UFO scene, which is kind of a strange area to be tied to. But that's how I got into this community, was through Bob Mitchell basically stepping forward and saying he wanted to tell my story. And I'm entirely grateful to him. And unfortunately, he passed away within 6 months of writing that book, which was very sad because he brought me into this and then he left. So I was very much alone in the journey that we had kind of planned together. But it's great because the one thing that this community taught me was for about how many years? A good amount of time, I really did feel alone in what I was going through. And when this was happening, I went to rabbis, I went to priests, I went to counselors, and I straight out told them, what was going on with me. And the look on their faces just told me that they're not equipped to deal with it. I was just, so I didn't know where to turn. And having that bottled up inside of you is kind of like poison. So to get it out into a book and then to go on radio shows and start talking about these experiences, I found out immediately that what I was describing was experienced by thousands of people, and nothing that I was saying was unique, and that's where you kind of get this whole experiencer support connection, where, which I think is very helpful, because who else is going to touch this? I knew that if I were to talk about out-of-body experiences, jumping into different timelines, out of body, meeting different beings, or having experiences, people would talk about abduction or alien experiences. I knew the labels that are associated with that and how society looks upon people that speak in those terms and language. And for me, I knew it was a human experience, something that happens to me and others, but we're still behind in our society that basically demonizes anything that is not really known or outside of perceived truth.
You are not alone. I will tell you that for sure. And I hear you when you're saying I don't fit in with the UFO community with that. And it's interesting. Oh, my Siri's going off. It's interesting to hear you say that, because at the time that I was there, I was just UFO, only UFO. I was one of those guys. So I could have looked at you then at that time in that sense, where I was trying to understand how that fit, because I also believed in that, because I'm a paranormal guy who got sucked into UFO. And it was talking to experiencers like you that I realized that there's more out there than UFOs, and the science and the evidence and all that other stuff always led me down this rabbit hole. And I appreciate that. And that's the whole reason why I created this Experiencer Support Association on that, as examples of that. And to hear that you didn't have support then, do you have support now? And if not, welcome to Tessa. We're here for you.
Well, at first, you really have no footing. You have no foundation, because you don't understand what's happening to you. And it's almost been 20 years since things have been going in this direction. And over the past, I'll say it took 15 years to feel somewhat grounded in this. And now I feel comfortable. I know how to navigate those other worlds. I know how to navigate certain situations that arises in these experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel very comfortable now. So for me, it's just normal everyday life.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas before it was, you're hiding.
Mm-hmm.
And there is psychological damage to hiding and not telling your truth.
Mm-hmm.
I remember meeting like new friends, or I remember like
Mm-hmm.
even, in the past, when I was single and I was, going out on dates, I would never tell the other person about that side of my life,
Mm-hmm.
and that weighs on you heavily emotionally, that you can't speak your truth. Yeah.
That's definitely a deal breaker on the first date, but maybe, date 4, save that one for the 4th date, and then a tester, use it as a tester.
That's right.
I'll interrupt just for a second here. Wise Healing, thank you so much for becoming a YouTube member. I appreciate that. Thank you, CC, for putting that on the screen. Thank you. You are helping us keep this free for experiencers who need it. So thank you. Okay, so getting deep there. I wasn't expecting that, but like, hey, that's that you are not alone, and you're not the only one that has gone through that is going through that. So thank you for sharing that. Are you familiar with our program called Experiencers Anonymous?
I am not.
Okay,
So
I'll give you more details about that. Their next one is on the observation deck. It's inside a virtual campus, so I can give you links to that. But then we also do a Zoom link. But it's for people, exactly how you described. You just show up and you share your experience as you did. But then the others who are listening, like we have here, you can all talk about your experiences and see what you have to do in common. There's no investigations, there's no research, there's no journalism. But the whole idea is to get it off your chest. And if you want to report it, then we have the investigative side on that background. So we encourage you to do it, but you don't have to do it. It's not the first thing you do. So when I learned that with MUFON, is they always interrupted you and said, make a report and do all these other things. Sometimes that happens when people share me the evidence. I'm like, that's great. Thank you. Blah, blah, blah. Can you make a report so I can give you some answers? But those who are in it, going through this experience, they don't have time for that. So they need to let it out. So when they do that through the Experiencers Anonymous program, you feel different. You get it off your chest, and you might just get someone to be like, that happened to me too. Tears and all this other stuff, whatever you need to heal, and then you can move on and you feel not alone. That's important. You're not alone, but do you feel not alone? And the point of that as well is and the hope, because we never know who's showing up, and we keep that part private as it being anonymous. But you might just run into somebody that needed to hear what you said, because they might be quiet and never said anything, and then because you said something and allowed them to speak, and so there's that environment that's available to you. I will hook you up on that afterwards. Just show up and do that, and see and share and help others. For those of you listening, testacan.org/EA. That's how you sign up for it. We'll send you the link to the next one. How do you feel about having a program like that available to you, or in general, I guess?
I think it's fantastic. And what you're doing is fantastic, because like I said, when these things were happening to me 20 years ago, literally it's 20 years now, I didn't know what an experiencer was. I didn't know that title. I just knew that whatever I was dealing with was paranormal.
Yeah.
And the reason I got wrapped into the whole UFO alien thing was because of my original experiences, where I said that it was in the out-of-body state that I could see these beings that are described in abduction scenarios or alien scenarios, but I clearly knew that it wasn't an abduction. It was an out-of-body experience. And so I didn't have that kind of preconceived abduction, UFO type belief system, I would say. I kind of got into this in a different way.
And it's interesting because like back then I was like, there's nothing but machines and government and conspiracies and like blah, blah, blah. And now like there's so much stuff that you don't know and I want to share with you, but I don't want to take over the show. So like I've now come with my research to learn and come up with a classification system that could help explain to the UFO community that us paranormal experiencers are experiencing the same phenomenon. So this sleep paralysis, that's an effect, that's technology, that perhaps could be some sort of mental visitation. So the language is still abduction, but it's the location of abduction of the mind. It's a visitation. It's psychogenic, and if it's a shadow being. There's no way to determine whether that being is extraterrestrial or a ghost. It's just a shadow being is described because that's what it looks like. That's the archetype, but it could still be either or. And so with that, when you break it down as a being was observed while you were unable to move, while you were sleeping, it doesn't matter if it's a ghost or an alien. What matters is that happened to you. And we need to figure out why. And we also need to give you resources or guide you to healers that can help you deal with that experience. And then whatever's left, let's investigate that. Because we want to be sure, absolutely certain that it wasn't, grandma walking around in her robe in the middle of the night, and all these things we forget. So we'll get more into it. I just wanted to give you that reassurance that I understand that that's not there, and I get it, and we will help you 100%.
It's interesting because, like you use the words technology, mm-hmm. and it's psychogenic. I was falling into sleep paralysis without intention, right? So someone could argue I was being put into sleep paralysis. Mm-hmm. But after I broke that spell, well, I'll use those terms, and I left my body, suddenly I knew that sleep paralysis was just a way of putting the body to sleep so that the astral body could now awaken and leave. Mm-hmm. So at first, it was a very negative connotation. It was very much, these things are doing something to you. They're taking advantage or they're manipulating. So immediately you have this fear based of whatever is going on, it's not you, something else is attacking you. Mm-hmm. And the more that I got into it, the more I realized it was almost like that shadow being, even though perceived to be a negative entity, was actually an initiator or a guide saying, I'm going to show you how to open this doorway. Mm-hmm. And once I show you how to open it and you take that step and know how to do it yourself, I'm no longer needed to show you this, mm-hmm. which is exactly what happened. So for me, it's like it always starts in fear. And then once it happens 500 times, mm-hmm. that fear kind of just goes away and you get completely sensitized to the situation at hand. And then suddenly you take control of it and navigate it yourself. So I found myself through meditative practices, putting myself into sleep paralysis because I knew what it felt like. Mm-hmm. And then once
you can confirm that you've done it. Yeah.
Yeah. And then just follow that path, which is how it goes. Mm-hmm. But that took years to figure out. So for years, I'm talking about all these negative things like, oh my God, this is happening to me, is terrible.
But you figured it out, and you were alone, but you figured it out. Yeah. And now you can teach, you can show others, which I think you're doing with your book, right?
Yes. And this is where, like you mentioned healing earlier, to find healing, the first messages that I received, or the first communications I received from beings, and I'm not going to say aliens or guides or angels. I don't know what they are. They're just intelligent. And it was always about, you have to heal yourself. Like, that was the main concern and the main message that was given to me. Mm-hmm. It wasn't about anybody else. It was very personal. And they said that my energy field, my life force, was very damaged and weak. And because of that state, I would be influenced, manipulated, pulled, made sick. And if I don't correct this now, in this point in my life, I'm not going to be going down the right path set forth that I came into this world for. Mm-hmm. And that led me on, I would call it the shamanic journey, where I actually did get into energy medicine. I got into Qi Gong. I started to become a student of Algonquin shamanism. So I went down that healing path, and everything started to align and click, and my experiences with the phenomenon completely changed.
We got a question here from our new member, Wise Healing. Thank you, CC, for putting that up there. Sorry it took so long to get to that. I just wanted him to finish his thought. So he said, I'll read this for our podcast listeners later on. It's, hi Jason Robert Wigand. Is that your full name? A proper, no. Okay, no. She's talking about something else. A former Navy SEAL has mentioned you on Carrie Cassidy's show regarding your Mars experiences. Guess he met you in Toronto. Can you say something about Mars? And then there's a little bit more there. It says, and also if thank you, CC. Also, if you and Bob may be related, i.e., both from a similar previous existence.
I don't have any Mars experiences. Might be confusing me with Randy Kramer, because I know he was in Toronto as well at the same time.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. So yeah, Randy was on our closer of season 3, and that was good and bad, but that was an interesting show.
Yeah, no comment.
Yeah, yeah. So okay, well, all right. Well, thank you for that question.
But with Bob Mitchell, definitely we had a instant kinship, like we were soul brothers.
Okay.
And yeah, like I was literally with him, through the thick and thin of the last 6 months that he had to go through. So we were very connected.
She continues with Bob Wingen also said your Egyptian rods helped him when demons took him out after he challenged them. So what are these Egyptian rods? Let's talk about that.
Interesting. Well, the Egyptian rods are many things. They're not one thing. They're a combination of either copper and zinc alloys in a cylinder form that would have materials like quartz and carbon or any other mineral in them. And these are found in Egypt. You see them on the Egyptian statues of them holding postures with the rods. I actually got a pair right here. So these would be rods that you would see statues holding.
Okay.
And basically, it's based on polarities. So you have the push and the pull, the negative and positive polarities. One is electroconductive, one is piezoelectric. So it aids in the movement of electrons or electromagnetic fields through the body. So when you would hold them, it's like kind of like an effect like a battery. So you're reconnecting yourself to the natural flow or natural source of energy in the environment. We can call that life force energy or positive Qi. And absolutely, if you would consider or calling a demon or something that wants to take energy from you or manipulate you, They do so because you have an opening. You have an energy that you carry that they desire, an affiliation to whatever that is, be it fear, anger, pain, trauma, whatever that thing you're holding on to. And when you're connecting to source, when you're connecting to the true essence of who you are, you can do that using the rods or any type of material that's natural. Everything has a life force inherent to it. You could deny access, I would say, to certain things trying to connect with you.
Okay, awesome. Okay, well then let's keep that. Let's kind of keep that going. I remember in the pre-show, Priscilla was asking about what was it, recreation, and was it
Reincarnation?
Reincarnation, preserving the body. You want to talk about that? Any?
Sure. The whole concept. Well, you're into the mysteries, right? You're into initiations. So you've probably heard of the initiations or the mysteries of Isis, of resurrection, and Osiris, being dead and then being resurrected by Isis. Basically, with mummification, it was believed that if the body remained intact, and I mean, as long as the spirit could recognize the body as the living image of the life that you lived, therefore the spirit could then walk the earth. All right, so as long as your living image is intact and recognizable to the spirit can walk the earth eternally. And that was the main idea and concept for the mummification ritual. It also had to do with the afterlife, because it wasn't just the body. The body was made, the body was a multi-dimensional body. So there's many of you that argue how many bodies, but I'll say there's 7 bodies that make up who you are. And in Egypt, they even had different sarcophagus to put you in. So, like a Russian doll, it's just a hollow body within a hollow body and so forth. It's the same thing with sarcophagus. There's like 7 different layers in the sarcophagus, and each one was to represent a different body of yours. And in each sarcophagus gave the instructions of what to expect in the afterlife, the judgment, what gateways you have to cross, what demons you may have to come in contact with. But each sarcophagus was an instruction to each body. So you're not just one thing. You're not just a physical body. You are multiple forces combined to create the human experience. And when the physical body dies, it either decays, goes back to the earth, or it's preserved for ritualistic, I call it magical things with the spirit that gave power to what they would say the Ka body is, because they could feed the energy body after you died through different vessels that were connected to you. And that's the way to really keep your spirit alive.
Okay, Thank you. The other question we were pondering too is perhaps the reason behind the animal heads. How did they? Any feedback on that?
Oh yeah, of course. There's okay, so when you go back into early religions, the first religions are connected to animals and the stars. All right, so the first religions, I'd say, like astro theology, and their personifications usually through animals. And in Egypt, for example, it was a desert environment. So the animals that you would see represented in the Egyptian pantheon would be the animals that existed in that environment. And those animals would be symbolic or have allegoric tales of a natural force to explain creation. So if, for example, Horus, the falcon, the bird, he's seen, he's above the ground. He's part of heaven. His right eye is the sun. His left eye is the moon. His body is the sky. So he's represented as the falcon.
Okay.
So basically, the natural forces were given embodiment to the gods. So when you think of the gods of ancient times, many people look at them and say, okay, they're a supernatural being that walk the earth. But to an initiate, they weren't a supernatural being walking the earth. They were an embodiment of different wisdom and knowledge of the forces of nature, symbolically represented as or personified as the god. And when you go to other cultures around the world that have similar type of spirituality, the exact same stories are present, but the animals change or the symbology change to match the location of where these things come from. So if you're moving up north to a more forested area, your gods are now going to take on the elements of those forests and the animals that inhabit those forests. It's the same thing in North America with the totems of the different animals that are in these specific locations. And when you go to different tribes, they have different totems because it's different animals in those locations.
Okay. So is it all conscious, like spiritual? It's not literal? It's never literal?
I would say this because I've had interactions with what people would describe as the gods. They would come in animal head and form, and I truly believe that this is our symbolic or archetypal experience to understand what is happening or what message is going to be conveyed from that supernatural force to you. It will take on the shape of those attributes to relay that message.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so I'm just totally engaged in that. I was just like, yeah, so totally. All right, well, thanks. All right, well,
it took me a long time to get there. Just to put that out there.
Well, lots
it
of
took me
studying,
a long time.
Yeah, no, it's good. You're there though. So, all right, let me think. What about mysticism? Like that is something else you got involved with. Oh, I got a message. Do I got a message here? Okay, yeah. So Priscilla's asking, why does the dog head weigh your heart?
Oh, well, the dog head is Anubis.
Okay.
Anubis, and is the son of Nephesis, which is the sister of Set, Osiris, and Isis. And he is the protector of the dead. He's basically, Anubis is the ruler of the deceased and makes sure that you are protected in life and in death. Anubis was also called the dog star, which is connected to Osiris, which is Sirius, star in the sky. And it represented truth. So they, when they would measure the heart, it would be weighed against the feather of truth, which is Ma'at. And the heart had to be pure in truth. And this was also the attribute of why Anubis would lead you down the halls to be faced in the halls of judgment with Osiris, was because he represented that feather of truth, being the dog star of Sirius. Everything goes back to an astrological allegory, is what I'll say. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Tanya Chin, thank you so much for that super chat. So she says, can't seem to purchase forbidden knowledge, even Kindle. Is there a way to purchase? Big fan of Jason Quitt.
No, at this time, I have taken all my books away.
Why? Why would you do that?
Because I feel like over the past 10 years or 20 years, I've grown a lot.
Okay.
And there's a lot of things in those books that I wish were not in there. A lot of personal things. Remember, there was a time where I was naive enough to think that the book that I wrote with Bob would never go anywhere. It would never reach it. I thought it would just be like, something I would take to the Total Health Show and say, here's my book.
Yeah.
I never, ever thought that it would actually go out into the world and reach people. I never believed that. So there's a lot of things in that book that I don't feel comfortable putting out into the world anymore. But I have a completely different perspective now than what I did 10 years ago. So my hope is that I'm going to rewrite a similar book to that.
Okay.
But I'm going to take out the conspiracy stuff. I'm going to take out the alien stuff and just go right into consciousness and the initiation into other spheres of mind.
Could it all be connected though? Maybe it's part of it. Maybe it's not just one person or one entity responsible for it. Maybe they're all connected in your experience. I haven't investigated any of your experiences, but I mean, what do you think? Like, maybe what came first, the alien or the download, like the messages?
Well, I think that I think that we start to believe what's common. We believe what makes us feel safe. And for example, if I go out in a field with some people and we see a UFO in the sky, and I say, oh my God, this is my first experience. I've never seen a UFO before. And then you have somebody next to you who's seen hundreds of them. And they'll turn to you and say, oh, that's a Palladian ship, and Commander Ashtar and this and that, and you have zero experience. So you immediately listen to their story and say, okay, well, you know what you're talking about. That kind of explains what I just experienced. So I feel like when we first start into this, we're highly influenced. We can be easily manipulated into belief systems about the phenomenon simply because that's what everybody believes.
Mm-hmm.
Or there's a lot of information that people corroborate saying this is what it is. And over the years, I've realized that it's not what they're saying it is. And it takes people off the path, but sometimes I feel like they need to be taken off the path to kind of find their real compass.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want to be a person, like if I know something over the years changed,
Mm-hmm.
or if I have a different explanation,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to continue spreading the information where I thought
Mm-hmm.
this is what it was, where now I know it's not what it was.
Mm-hmm.
You see?
Yeah, and like, so with the ultra spectrum classification system that I created, it's to prevent or at least help people that do that, dial it back to the root. So whatever you call it, like let's take beings for an example, as we go back to your shadow figure, that's the term that you use to describe it. Alien, ghost, apparition, it's a being observed. So at least at the end, of the day, no matter what you're trying to identify it or classify it as, if we can agree that you're confident that it was a being by the definition of a being, like it was solid matter in your room, then you can start to have a conversation about how anything got into the area, into the space. When we have people that say, yeah, for sure, that's a Pleiadian thing and whatnot, they're very confident, but they're calling it Pleiadian because how much of that is belief? How much of that is what they think it might actually be, or how much of that are they actually seeing in reality? Because you might be viewing that location in the third dimension, but perhaps they have a psychic ability that's that they're unaware of, and they're viewing it in the interdimension, in the ether, in the ultraspectrum. So in that moment in time, you got two experiencers looking in the same spot, but one calls it this, one calls it another. Who's right and who's wrong? But you can agree. I hope you would agree when you have a conversation and you classify this event, if I were to measure them separately, that it was aerial activity and it was something that happened in the sky, and one subject was able to see it perhaps psychogenically in their mind, while the other subject was not able to see anything at all, but not ruling out the possibility that it was there at all. And then what we do is then we start to say, well, you know what? Oddly enough, they both have blue eyes. They both have A-type blood. They both, so there's something dim, with all those who see them in such a way. So if you're going to rewrite your book, I would still include the index events, perhaps maybe have a conversation or look at the ultraspectrum or try to bring it down to the root and just stop using the labels,
Exactly.
and stick to the facts. Something was in my room, something I was unable to move. And then we can interpret, what that was. It could be technology. It could be.
All the experiences that I personally write about in the Forbidden Knowledge book, none of that has changed in my mind. Mm-hmm. None of it. So when I rewrite it, those stories will not change at all, not one word.
Good.
The only thing that changes is the perspective of it, like growing up with those experiences. Mm-hmm. And remember, Bob Mitchell, he was the alien guy. So in my book, I would say half of the book is my experiences and half of the book is talking about like alien races and conspiracies in the government, some pretty dark stuff, right?
Still true today, though. Still possible. Hasn't been solved yet.
That is true. That is true. But it's not me. I can only speak to what has happened to me and what have I experienced and what I know. I could speculate of these different events, or I could speculate about different conspiracies, but that's just speculation. It's not something that has actually happened to somebody that they can now talk about and relate to other people.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. Okay, so we're going to pause right here, but we'll continue after a message from our sponsors. Also, if you're listening to this audio only version, head over to youtube.com/the Experiencer Support Association, or go into the Experiencer Hall in the observation deck so you can see the video that is going with this audio. Unless you're watching this on the replay, it won't be in the observation deck. So remember, you are listening to Beyond the Tinfoil Hat, a podcast by the Experiencer Support Association, and we will be right back.
It's your business. It's your property. Your assets are worth protecting. Blacklight Investigative and Surveillance Services specializes in patrolling and inspecting residential or commercial property against fire, theft, vandalism, terrorism, and illegal activity. People and buildings are monitored to prevent crime. Keep your property, your people, and your assets safe from threat. Our elite staff are dual licensed private investigators